Good morning. Happy Friday. So we wake up this morning to find out that the president and the first lady have tested positive for COVID, and he's in his 70s. Godspeed, Mr. President. I hope that all works out, and he's one of those that nothing happens. So let's talk about money today. I heard a great conversation about the difference between the middle class and the super wealthy and how they look at money. Now, the middle class is considered to have basically gone away in this country. And is that because people aren't making money? Well, no, there's lots of people that make lots of money. It's how everybody manages money, including myself at times in my life, that make us the middle class. So, one of the things you got to remember is that the American dream was specifically designed to help the banks. It was not designed to help individuals. Everything that we're taught about to have as the American dream really doesn't help the person who's trying to live the American dream. It helps a bank. So like when I was growing up, you were told that your number one investment should be your home, and that you should try to get the nicest home that you could, lock into a low interest rate mortgage. Then you were told you should save your money into 401ks, especially if you work for a corporation, because the corporation might match on the 401ks. And then if you just stay and do that, you can retire someday with an amount of money. Oh, and by the way, you should also have cars and take trips. So what happens is people work hard, they make a good amount of money, especially over their lifetime, but they're always working for the bank. They're never working for themselves. So number one, houses as investments across the country over the last 30, 40, 50 years have been a terrible investment. Now, in terms of a residence that you live in, now, if you happen to hit it right and you buy at the right time, just like anything, well, yeah, then you did fine. But over the long period of time, growth in real estate, because there's been virtually zero inflation, has been virtually non-existent. So buying a large house, building a large house, like I did, horrible investment, almost as bad an investment as a vehicle. How do wealthy people think about money? Well, number one, they do the following formula. They spend less than they make. They invest money. They pay themselves first. And then they figure out how to grow the money. Here's what they don't do. They don't spend money on houses. They don't buy houses until later. The super wealthy don't think about buying a house or buying a condo in New York or in Los Angeles or in Miami. They think about buying the building and then living in the building so that other people pay for what they want. That's how the wealthy think about money. How can I do something so that other people are paying for the things that I want? So they don't buy individual houses until later in life. They don't save in 401ks, because 401ks, you can't use them until you're later in life. And they don't produce any cash flow. So they don't do that. Middle class are told to save their cash, to put their cash in a bank, and to have savings, that you need to have X number of months in savings. When you're holding cash, are you making money or losing money? You're losing money, because even if there's a minuscule amount of inflation, there's still going to be some inflation. So whatever that dollar is worth when you earned it, it's going to be worth less the next day and every day thereafter. So inflation works against you. So holding cash loses you money. It doesn't make you money. Who benefits if you stick cash in a bank? The bank does. The bank doesn't pay you any interest. They pay you, 0.002 or whatever it is. But then they get to use the money and lend it to other people and make money. The savings benefits the bank. It doesn't benefit you. So rich people don't do that. Rich people take cash and invest it in things that make them money. They don't think about buying an interest in a business. They think about buying a business. They think about buying real estate. They think about buying things that make them money and pay for the stuff that they want. Then when they get cash flow, then they use that cash flow to buy the stupid stuff. Then they use that cash flow to buy the high-end car and the high-end watch and the high-end purse. They don't save in 401ks. They don't borrow money to send their kids to school. They use other people's money and pay cash. And they worry about sending their kids to the best school, not necessarily because of the education that school has, but because of who you meet when you're at that school. They understand that the difference between Yale and Illinois State isn't necessarily the professors. It's who your roommate's going to be while you're at Yale. It's who you're going to be in a fraternity with, even though they don't have fraternities. They call them societies at Yale. You know, George W. Bush ended up skull and bones at Yale because his dad was skull and bones at Yale. Skull and Bones has these societies. The Skull and Bones Society, Teddy Roosevelt was also was a member at Harvard, and he was in the Phoenix Club. The reason he got elected president is because he was in the Phoenix Club, because of the people that he knew. That's what got him into a situation where he had enough people to support him, to raise the money, and to get himself into the presidency. He also had talents and skills, absolutely. But it was because he went to Harvard and because he got in the Phoenix Club that happened. George W. Bush got into Skull and Bones because his dad was in Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones is a private organization that won't tell you much about them, but I can tell you this. They have their own island, and children of Skull and Bones go to that island to meet their spouse. You can pick anybody that you want on the island, but it's going to be the child of another Skull and Bones person. When you want to borrow, if you want to buy a house, you don't borrow money from a bank if you're Skull and Bones. You borrow money from Skull and Bones. Those connections are what lead you. When George W. became president, most of his staff were Skull and Bones. Not a shock from Yale. So rich people understand that the schools are designed because of who you meet and who you're going to be around. And they don't borrow money to do that. They use cash flow to do that. They use the money that they've already created and have other people paying them in order to do that. So they think differently. The biggest phrase that's always hit me, and it's taken me forever in my life, quite honestly, in order to try to figure out how to do this. They make money while they sleep. And that, if you want financial independence, that's the part that you have to get to. So, poor people buy houses, buy cars, join clubs like country clubs, things like that, although that's not really much of a thing anymore. They save cash. They invest in 401ks. And they work at the hopes that someday they won't have to work when they're 60, 65, whatever. Wealthy people don't buy houses. They don't buy cars. They invest in ways that make them money right away. They don't buy houses and cars. They buy businesses. They don't buy interest in businesses in terms of stock. They buy businesses where they get cash back from it. They don't buy big pieces of property. They buy real estate that pays them. They don't invest in 401ks. They don't save cash. They use their cash in order to create more cash and give themselves leverage. They don't borrow money to send kids to school. They have other people pay for that, but they send their kids to the best schools starting when their kids are the youngest. They worry about kindergarten so that the kid can get into Yale, Stanford, Harvard, Oxford. And they look at it as, how can I build wealth? They make building wealth a priority, and they do it by owning. In essence, look at it this way. They become... Did my wife just shush me on this? They become the bank. If you want financial independence, instead of working for a bank, become a bank. And that doesn't, you're doing favors for people. If you own properties and you take really good care of them and you're a good landlord and you treat your tenants well, as opposed to somebody that doesn't take care of the property and treats their tenants poorly, you're doing people a favor. But then at the same time, rather than giving your money to a bank, you're acting like a bank and you're making money in that sense instead of giving money away. So if we want financial independence, we need to change our mentality in terms of how we look at money. And now is a good time. When there is a huge upheaval like is going on right now, I saw things last night. There was 50% of the restaurants and bars in New York City are going to go broke. I mean, how many of those new projects that are going on right now are going to go broke? My wife, who shushed me on here, and I were talking about history when we were on a 5-mile jaunt last night, and we were discussing history because we were listening to Hamilton. And we were talking about after the North won the war and the Civil War, people from the North came down and tried to buy up these plantations and these large estates because they had cash. They were buying distressed properties. Well, that's going on right now. You can bet that the hedge funds, before COVID hit, some of the biggest hedge funds like Mitt Romney's hedge fund and those guys, they were gearing up cash, waiting because they knew that something was coming. There was going to be a recession. And then they're going to go around and buy distressed properties. So these big construction projects that have been going on, they're going to buy them up for pennies on the dollar. And 10 years from now, they're going to make huge multiples in terms of the amount of money that they're going to create. That's how rich people think about money. They buy things that pay them while they sleep. So my wife seems to have shushed me. I better bring her some coffee. I hope that was helpful today, everybody. Go have a great Friday. Go get after it and get after your goals, and make sure you take a look at what it is that you're focused on. Remember, at the end of the day with all of this, it's not what we get, it's who we become that makes this all worth it. So this is a great time to forge yourself into the new you. The next 90 days, the next 180 days, we're going to have a lot of opportunity because we can't do much else. So you might as well take the time to use it in order to become the person that you've always wanted to be. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.